Waitress is accused of stealing by a rich customer, but a millionaire. Checks the camera, and Aria Sullivan never imagined her world could flip upside down in a single evening shift. She was the kind of waitress who remembered regulars by name and always kept extra crayons on hand for restless kids. Yet on one chilly autumn night, a suspiciously demanding millionaire stormed into Westbridge Bistro, threw around his lofty status, and accused her of stealing a priceless heirloom. Word spread like wildfire through the restaurant, pitting staff and patrons against each other. Hearts pounded and secrets simmered. When all hope seemed lost, a surprising figure stepped forward to examine the security camera, unveiling a shocking truth. Autumn in the city of Westbridge was always a spectacle-crisp air, laced with the scent of falling leaves, the hum of taxis splashing through puddles, and the occasional swirl of mist that kissed the streetlights. Westbridge Bistro was tucked away on a quaint block, a brick-walled sanctuary from the city's frenetic heartbeat. It wasn't a five-star establishment, but it had a reputation for quality meals, warm service, and a comforting rustic ambiance. On this particular evening, the bistro glowed from within its low-hanging lamps, casting a golden sheen on polished tables and vintage posters. Aria Sullivan had already been on her feet for 5 hours. At 27, she was the rare waitress who found a hint of magic in every shift. Maybe it was her infectious smile or her honey-brown eyes that sparkled whenever she engaged with a customer. Maybe it was the way she jotted down every detail on an order pad, worn from years of faithful service. Truth be told, Aria was devoted, because she had to be a single mother to a bright-eyed 4-year-old boy. Liam bills needed, paying rent was due, and childcare wasn't cheap. She balanced a tray in one hand as she skirted around a cluster of tables. "How's everything tasting?" she asked a family of 4, making sure to bend down to the kids' level. They beamed up at her small faces, smeared with sauce and delight. "It's wonderful," the father replied, then gave her a grateful nod. Aria's manager, James Wilson, hovered near the bar. He was a cautious man in his early 40s, wearing a neat black shirt and tie. He offered Aria a slight approving smile. James knew the restaurant thrived on repeat customers drawn in by Aria's warmth. A faint drizzle coated the windows, and each time the front door opened, a burst of chilled air wafted inside. At precisely 7:45 p.m., a tall, elegant woman stepped through Victoria Hastings. She was a local socialite, known for her flamboyant style and connections to some of the wealthiest families in Westbridge. Next to her was a distinguished gentleman, sporting an immaculately tailored suit, hair slicked back in a polished style. He walked with an air of proprietorship, as if the entire city were his domain. This was Charles Hamilton, a name frequently mentioned in society pages for orchestrating multi-million-dollar deals. James straightened his posture. Victoria Hastings was one of their high-spending patrons, and Charles Hamilton, while not a regular, carried a reputation for extravagance. Aria exchanged a knowing look with James. Here were 2 customers who would be expecting the red carpet treatment. Sure enough, Victoria glided toward a table in the center of the restaurant, gently flicking away a speck of lint from the pristine tablecloth. Charles followed, but did not remove his coat. Instead, he lowered himself onto the chair, as if testing its worthiness. A hush fell over the dining room, as if everyone sensed that something important, or at least dramatic, was about to transpire. Aria took a moment to steady her nerves before approaching. She'd handled demanding customers before, but Charles Hamilton's energy felt different, like a tension coil ready to snap. As she neared, Victoria gave her a gracious smile. "I'd like a glass of your best Pinot Noir, dear," she said, flicking her eyes over Aria's uniform. "Of course," Aria replied politely. Pen poised, Charles didn't bother to smile. "Just water," he muttered. "Sparkling if you have it." Aria nodded and gracefully moved to fetch their drinks. Little did she know the events about to unfold would shake her confidence to the core. And it all began with a single ring, a piece of heirloom jewelry, with a history as dark and storied as Charles Hamilton himself. Minutes later, Aria returned with a glass of ruby-colored Pinot Noir and a bottle of sparkling water chilled in ice. Victoria accepted her wine with a practiced elegance, swirling the liquid and inhaling the bouquet. Charles, however, kept staring at his phone, hardly acknowledging Aria as she poured the water into a crystal glass. "Let me know when you're ready to order," Aria said. She kept her tone steady, though an uneasy knot was forming in her stomach. "We'll need a few minutes," Charles replied curtly. Aria retreated to the bartender's station, heart thumping a beat faster than usual. Something about Charles's presence was oppressive. She watched him place his phone on the table and straighten his cuffs, revealing a dazzling cufflink. Then she caught sight of a large, ornate ring on his left hand, glittering under the low lights. It looked antique gold, filigree set with an emerald stone. Even from a distance, it was striking. Victoria and Charles spent the next several minutes in hushed conversation, leaning across the table in a manner that signaled secrecy. Every so often, Charles's hand would dart to the ring, twisting it nervously. Nearby diners shot them curious glances. The pair emanated a magnetic aura of wealth and possible scandal. Eventually, Aria returned to the table with a trained smile. "Have you decided on your dinner selections?" Victoria placed her menu down. "I'll have the grilled salmon with roasted vegetables, and please see to it that the salmon is fresh." "Absolutely," Aria assured her. Charles slid his menu across the table. "Steak medium rare, with rosemary potatoes." He ran a finger over the tabletop in apparent dissatisfaction. "Have the chef be precise. I don't tolerate anything less than perfection." Aria jotted notes, ignoring the slight jab. "Understood, sir. We'll make sure everything is to your liking." As she turned to leave, Charles snapped his fingers. "Wait, what about desserts? I may want to order in advance." She bit back her annoyance. "We have a selection of house-made pies, molten chocolate cake and tiramisu," she answered swiftly. Noticing how Victoria was lightly sipping her wine, Charles nodded, waving a dismissive hand. "We'll see later." Aria's nerves were on edge, but she hustled to relay the order to the kitchen. Over the next half hour she circled the dining room, attending to other guests, but always keeping an eye on Charles and Victoria's table. Their conversation seemed intense. Victoria's eyes occasionally flickered with worry, while Charles wore a perpetual scowl. When the main courses arrived, Aria presented the dishes with practiced grace. Grilled salmon for the lady, medium-rare steak for the gentleman. She placed them gently, stepping back to gauge their reactions. Victoria nodded in appreciation. "Thank you, dear Charles," however wasted no time cutting into his steak and taking a bite. His expression softened slightly. At least the chef had met his standard, yet he did not offer any word of gratitude. Halfway through their meal, Aria returned to top off Victoria's wine. That was when she noticed Charles rubbing his ring with a frown. The emerald seemed less vibrant under the yellowish light of the bistro. He caught her looking. "This is a family heirloom," Charles said, a hint of pride leaking into his voice. "Worth more than this entire place," I'm sure Victoria gave a tight smile. "Charles, stop," he shrugged. "Just pointing out facts." Aria ignored the rude comment and poured the wine with impeccable control. "Would you like anything else at the moment?" she asked politely. That'll be all. Charles grunted. She walked away, but the image of that emerald ring lingered in her mind. There was something unsettling about Charles's fixation on it, like he was both proud and burdened by it. By the time the plates were cleared and thoughts turned to dessert, the night seemed on the verge of concluding uneventfully. But in the hush of after-dinner conversation, with coffee cups clinking and other patrons settling their checks, a storm of conflict was quietly brewing, one that would soon lash through the bistro with ruthless intensity. The tension ignited shortly after Aurea delivered a slice of key lime pie to Victoria and a cup of black coffee to Charles. The pair lingered at the table, seemingly in some sort of heated financial discussion. Charles was gesticulating with vigor, his ring glinting under the lights. Aurea moved on to check other tables, hoping to wrap up her shift soon and head home to her son. Suddenly, a shrill exclamation cut through the restaurant's hum. "It's gone, my ring. Someone stole it." Charles Hamilton's voice thundered across the dining room, causing forks to clatter and conversations to halt mid-sentence. Aurea whipped around to see him frantically patting his suit pockets, scanning the floor around him. Victoria looked just as startled, her eyes widening in alarm. All eyes turned to Charles. Waiters, customers, and even the kitchen staff peered from behind the order window. The ring that had been so ostentatiously displayed on Charles's hand was nowhere to be seen. "Sir, please calm down," James Wilson said, hastening over from the bar area. His face was taut with concern. "Are you sure you had it with you?" Charles shot him a withering glare. "Of course I did. I was wearing it all night. 1 minute it was on my finger, now it's gone." Victoria attempted a soothing tone. "Charles, maybe it slipped off or rolled under the table. Charles wasn't hearing it. This ring has never just slipped off. No, someone took it." His gaze scanned the bistro's staff like a spotlight on a prison yard, eventually landing on Aurea. She felt her stomach clench as Charles's eyes bore into her, "Sir." She began stepping forward. "I assure you we can help you look for it. You—" Charles snapped. "You were the one who came by our table so often. Filling wine, clearing plates. You must have had access." Aurea's cheeks burned. I was just doing my job. I didn't take anything." James quickly intervened. "Charles Aurea's one of our most trusted employees. There's no reason to accuse her." Charles slammed a palm against the table. Trusted or not, that ring didn't vanish into thin air. Someone had to have stolen it. Across the room, a few customers whispered among themselves, while others openly gawked. The hush was dreadful, broken only by the faint crackle of an overhead speaker playing soft jazz. Victoria tried to mediate Charles. "Let's just do a quick search. Maybe it's on the floor or accidentally wrapped in the napkins." Aurea swallowed hard, stepping forward to lift the tablecloth. She scanned the floor meticulously. "It's not here," she said, after a moment. James bent down to help, shining a small flashlight from his phone under the table. "No ring," he muttered, furrowing his brows. Charles's face grew darker. "I'm going to need answers," he growled. His voice took on a threatening edge. "This ring is worth over $100,000. You understand that kind of theft is a serious crime." Aurea's heartbeat thundered in her ears. She'd never been accused of anything like this before. The notion that Charles's ring could be hidden somewhere on her person or in her apron was both horrifying and insulting. She clasped her hands together, fighting the urge to tremble. "Please check me. Check everything. I have nothing to hide." Aurea was determined to clear her name on the spot, if that's what it took. James looked uneasy. "We can search the immediate vicinity and alert the authorities if necessary." Charles nodded sharply. Yes, call the police. Let them handle it. A ripple of shock passed through the dining room. Aria's co-workers, including her close friend Mia Carter, looked on with concern. Mia moved closer to Aria, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Victoria looked distressed as well, her eyes darting between Charles and the mortified waitress. "Charles, are you sure you want to involve the police right away?" He glared at Victoria. "Are you suggesting I don't, that I just let $100,000 ring be stolen without consequences?" Victoria's face clouded. "Of course not, I just—" "Enough," Charles hissed. "I'm going to the manager's office to make some calls, and I want that waitress kept here until the police arrive." The color drained from Aria's face. This couldn't be happening. Accused of grand theft in front of everyone with the specter of police involvement looming over her, she glanced at James for support, but he looked torn between preserving the bistro's reputation and defending his waitress. Somehow the night that had started as just another shift had devolved into a legal and emotional nightmare. With Charles Hamilton's ire fixated on her, Aria felt trapped in a situation that was quickly spiraling out of control. While Charles and Victoria retreated to the manager's office to call the police and speak privately, Aria stood near the bar flanked by Mia and James. She could feel the weight of every stare in the bistro pressing down on her. Mia squeezed her arm. "Aria, you would never do anything like this." Everyone knows that Aria's eyes glistened with tears. She fought to keep at bay. "Thank you. I'm so scared. What if he convinces the police?" "I took it." James frowned, glancing at the onlooking customers. "Let's step into the kitchen. We need some privacy." He led Aria and Mia through the swinging door, where the usual bustle of cooks and clanging pots had softened. The kitchen staff paused their work eyes full of worry. "I have no idea why he's targeting me," Aria said, once they were away from prying eyes. "He's probably just looking for the nearest scapegoat." James rubbed his temples. "This is serious, Aria Grand. Theft is not something you can shrug off. We need to handle this delicately. The restaurant's reputation is on the line, too. If word gets out that a customer's valuables vanish here, we could be in deep trouble." She looked up, her voice trembling. "I'll do whatever it takes to prove my innocence. I can't lose my job, or worse, get arrested. I have Liam to take care of Mia." Nodded firmly. "We'll get through this." "Is there any chance the ring is still somewhere on the premises?" James exhaled slowly. "We'll have to do a thorough search. Also, we do have security cameras installed, though they're mostly for the register area and the entrances. I'm not sure if they capture the dining tables clearly, but it's worth a shot." Aria clung to that shred of hope. "Yes, please. Check the cameras." Before they could discuss further, the kitchen door swung open. Victoria Hastings peered in her face, etched with worry. "I just wanted to say, I hope this is a misunderstanding. Charles is furious, but I never saw you take anything. You seemed so nice." Aria nodded tersely, uncertain how to respond. Victoria's presence was more comforting than Charles's hostility, but the doubt still lingered. Was Victoria here to genuinely help, or just to placate? James cleared his throat. "Victoria, do you recall seeing Charles remove the ring at any point? Could he have put it in his coat pocket?" She tapped her chin, brow furrowed. "Not that I remember, but Charles was fiddling with it all night. He's been stressed about some business deal." Her gaze flicked to Aria. "I really don't think you took it." "Dear. But he's convinced otherwise. The ring is a big part of some family story that weighs heavily on him. He claims it's cursed, or something equally dramatic, but to him it's priceless." Aria's mind whirled. I never touched him or the ring. I only brought food drinks and cleared the plates. Victoria nodded sympathetically. Look, the police will arrive soon. Let them do their job and maybe the ring will turn up. She cast one last look of concern at Arya before disappearing into the dining room. For several agonizing minutes, Arya and Mia huddled in the kitchen while James approached the restaurant's modest security station, a small monitor and a row of flickering screens. The system wasn't high-end, but it recorded enough to catch glimpses of the main dining area. James spent some time clicking through the night's footage. To Arya's dismay, the camera angles mostly captured the bar, the entrance, and partial views of the tables. Finally, James looked up, beckoning Arya over to see the screen. I can see you approach Charles and Victoria's table a few times, but from this angle it's unclear if you ever reach for anything that isn't a glass or plate. Arya stared at the grainy footage. Her movements were professional, delivering wine-clearing dishes. Charles's ring was visible at times, flashing when his hand moved, but there was no clear shot of her taking it, nor was there a shot showing him removing it. The footage wasn't conclusive enough to exonerate her completely. Mia pursed her lips. This might at least create reasonable doubt. The camera never shows you doing anything suspicious. Arya nodded, but her stomach sank. She needed undeniable proof. For now, all she had was a questionable video that showed too little. Suddenly the door swung open again, this time revealing Charles Hamilton, his face like stone. "The police are on their way," he announced coldly. His eyes flickered to the security monitors. "What do you think you'll find there? That camera's angle is worthless." Arya stiffened, trying not to tremble under his glare. "I have nothing to hide." Charles stepped closer, invading her personal space. "I know your type. Nice smile, pleasant demeanor, but ready to pounce on any opportunity to snatch something valuable." He lifted his hand, glaring at his empty ring finger. "You should just admit it. Save us all the trouble." An outraged flush crept up Arya's neck. "Admit something I didn't do, never." Charles responded with a menacing sneer. "We'll see about that. The police can search your things, your locker, your purse, whatever it takes." Arya swallowed hard. She had no fear they would find anything, but the invasion of privacy was humiliating. Worse yet, Charles's unwavering conviction was terrifying. Wealthy and influential men like him often got their way, regardless of the truth. As she locked eyes with Charles, she felt her heart pound. No matter how innocent she was, fighting a man of his stature felt like wrestling a tidal wave, and at that moment, a dark part of her wondered if the ring would ever be found, if it hadn't been all part of some twisted game from the start. The police arrived within 15 minutes, 2 officers stepping through the bistro's entrance. By then, most of the customers had paid and left uncomfortable with the unfolding drama. News traveled fast in Westbridge. Rumors of a stolen heirloom and impending arrest had put a palpable damper on the evening Arya stood near the bar, arms folded. She felt a trembling wave of anxiety, but she forced herself to remain composed. If she appeared guilty or panicked, that would only feed Charles's accusations. The lead officer, a tall woman with a firm but approachable demeanor, introduced herself as Officer Carmen Reyes. Her partner, Officer Darius Ford, stood beside her. Scanning the faces in the room, Charles and Victoria approached, with Charles immediately launching into a furious explanation. "That waitress," he pointed accusingly at Arya, "had every opportunity to take my ring. I want her searched, and I want these premises thoroughly checked." Officer Reyes frowned. "Sir, we'll conduct a proper investigation. I'd like to speak to the manager first." She turned to James, who cleared his throat. James gestured toward the small office in the back. We can speak privately here." As Officer Reyes and Charles moved toward the office, a low murmur spread among the remaining staff. Mia walked over to Arya, giving her arm a reassuring squeeze. "It'll be okay. Just tell them the truth." Arya nodded, her throat dry. She watched as Charles, James, and Officer Reyes disappeared into the office, leaving her to stew in nervous tension. Moments later, the door swung open again, and in walked a figure that made everyone freeze. He was tall, with silver-streaked hair and a confident posture. He wore casual but elegant attire, dark jeans, a tailored blazer, and a scarf that looked like it cost more than a month's rent. His face was instantly recognizable, at least to those who paid attention to business news or philanthropic events. It was Richard Branson, the billionaire entrepreneur who had made headlines countless times for his ventures and philanthropic endeavors. A chorus of whispers broke out among the staff. What on earth was Richard Branson doing in Westbridge Bistro on such a chaotic night? Richard paused at the entrance, glancing around. He looked slightly perplexed by the tense atmosphere, but not alarmed. The hostess, still shaken from the earlier commotion, tried to speak, but the words stuttered out. Spotting a half-empty dining room, Richard approached Mia. "Is your establishment still serving dinner? I've just flown in for a meeting, and I'm in dire need of a meal." Mia's eyes flickered to Arya, then to the chaotic swirl of activity near the manager's office. Yes, sir. We're open, but we're dealing with a bit of a situation." He offered a gentle understanding. "Smile, I can see that. Hope I'm not intruding." Arya mustered her courage to step forward. "Branson, it's an honor to have you here. I'm, the waitress on duty." She briefly hesitated. Should she burden him with the story? "We've had a theft accusation." Richard's brows rose in concern. "Accusation, you say?" She nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "A customer believes I stole his ring, a very expensive heirloom. The police are here." Richard looked genuinely dismayed. "That's unfortunate. This place was recommended to me by James Wilson, the manager, months ago. I was planning to invest in some local businesses, including this bistro." Arya felt a spark of hope. If Richard Branson knew James or had business dealings here, perhaps he could mediate. "Would you like a seat, sir? We can get you a menu." He nodded, "Yes." "Please and do. Let me know if I can be of any assistance regarding these accusations." Arya guided him to a table near the window, one with a decent view of the entire dining room. Mia rushed to bring him water, while the entire staff seemed starstruck, yet aware they were in the midst of a crisis. By then, Officer Reyes re-entered the dining area, followed by James, and a visibly agitated Charles Victoria trailed behind, looking apologetic. Officer Reyes cleared her throat, addressing the staff. "We'll need to ask a few questions and conduct a search of personal belongings. I hope everyone will cooperate." Richard Branson, sipping his newly delivered sparkling water, stood. His voice carried quiet authority. "Officer, might I suggest we also review any available security footage? I'm told many establishments have cameras in place these days." Charles folded his arms. "We did check them. The angle is no good. It doesn't show her stealing anything, but it doesn't prove she didn't." Richard gave Arya a thoughtful look. "Still, it might be worth a professional second glance, sir. Sometimes the devil is in the details." Officer Reyes nodded. "That's part of our procedure. We'll look at the raw footage ourselves." Charles glowered at the new arrival. "And who might you be, Richard?" Met the gaze calmly. "Richard Branson." Charles's sneer faded, replaced by mild surprise. A small tense silence lingered in the air before Officer Reyes gestured for everyone to gather near the bar area. Let's get statements from staff and the manager first. Arya felt a flicker of relief that Richard Branson was here. Maybe his involvement, or at least his presence, would keep Charles from further browbeating her. Perhaps he could lend some clout and help ensure a fair investigation. While the police collected statements, Richard quietly observed, finishing his water and occasionally asking polite, clarifying questions. It became apparent to him and everyone else that Charles Hamilton was fixated on proving Arya's guilt, while Arya stood firm in her innocence. Officer Reyes turned to Arya. "Do you consent to a search of your person and belongings?" Arya nodded, chest tight. "Yes, please. I have nothing to hide." The search was conducted discreetly in the presence of a female officer who had just arrived. They checked Arya's apron uniform pockets and small locker in the break area. Nothing turned up. Charles looked furious but said nothing as the officers moved on to systematically check the premises. The dining room was combed over the floor, searched, and the trash bins examined, all to no avail. The ring was nowhere. When the search concluded, Officer Reyes pulled Charles aside. "Mr. Hamilton, we can't locate any evidence of a theft." "Are you certain you were wearing the ring when you arrived?" Charles's voice rose, echoing off the walls. "I was definitely wearing it. That waitress must have slipped it somewhere." He spun on his heel to face Arya again. "Where did you hide it, huh? Got it stashed in your car, perhaps? Do you even own a car, or did you take the bus to your next heist?" Heat flared in Arya's cheeks. She opened her mouth to speak, but found no words. Anger, humiliation, and fear coalesced into a hard lump in her throat. Richard Branson stepped forward, the tension in the room parting around him like waves around a steady ship. "Hamilton, it might be wise to calm down. Without concrete evidence, these accusations only stir hostility. Let's review the camera footage properly. If we have to check more angles, or even see if there's nearby street footage, we should do so." Charles's nostrils flared. "Oh, so now you're the expert." Richard maintained composure. "I've installed countless security systems in my properties. Sometimes, a second look can reveal something you missed. I also know that hasty accusations can lead to wrongful blame. Let's not make a bigger mess." Officer Reyes nodded, agreed. "Let's gather the raw footage. We'll analyze it more thoroughly at the station, or if Mr. Branson has expertise with such systems, he can lend a hand." Charles looked like he wanted to object, but with a billionaire entrepreneur, a calm police officer, and the entire staff watching, he grudgingly conceded. "Fine," he snapped. "Review it, all you want. I'm sure you'll find something incriminating." Arya silently exhaled a breath of relief. The truth had to come out sooner or later, and with a bit of luck and help from an unlikely ally, she might just be able to prove her innocence once and for all. Officer Reyes, Richard Branson, James and Arya gathered in the cramped manager's office, where a modest computer setup received live feeds from the security cameras. Charles Hamilton hovered in the doorway, his impatience palpable, while Victoria lingered just behind him, wringing her hands anxiously. The memory card containing the relevant footage was inserted into a laptop. Officer Reyes stood, close arms folded. "Let's see what we've got." James navigated to the time window corresponding to Charles and Victoria's arrival. The footage was somewhat grainy, but the color camera offered a passable view of the restaurant's interior. From above, the vantage captured the bar part of the main dining area, and some of the walkway where Arya and the other servers passed regularly. Arya watched intently. There she was greeting Charles and Victoria, delivering wine, taking orders. In the video, one could see the subtle movements and interactions, but the angle never perfectly aligned with the table. At a critical moment, the overhead lamp that might have shown the ring was partially blocked by a decorative potted plant. Charles gritted his teeth. "It's exactly what I said. You can't see that side of the table." Richard Branson studied the footage, leaning closer to the screen. "True, the vantage is limited, but let's not skip through too quickly." They continued second by second. There was Aria clearing the plates, Victoria chatting with Charles. The ring flashed a few times when Charles lifted his hand. Aria at no point bent near him or lingered suspiciously. At one juncture, Aria watched in real time as she lifted a few dishes from the table. Charles was rotating the ring on his finger. Suddenly the camera flickered. A momentary glitch or shift in the feed made the screen blur before it refocused. "Hold on," Richard said, pointing at the screen. "Rewind a bit." Right before that glitch. James clicked back. Officer Reyes leaned forward, frowning. "There's a skip in the recording." Richard nodded. "It might be a system error or something. Triggered it." He let out a low hum. "I've seen this happen in security footage. If there's a camera reset or if the system is tampered with James, repeated alarmed." Charles huffed. "That's a stretch." Officer Reyes met Richard's gaze. "Do you think there's a chance someone manipulated the footage? I can't say for sure. But let's see if we can salvage the frames around that glitch." James opened the advanced settings. The feed replayed, and they zoomed in, adjusting brightness levels. Finally, they caught a glimpse of Charles, presumably right before the glitch, leaning forward, then leaning back. Aria's hand never ventured near him. Then the image distorted for 2 seconds, after which the scene continued, with Charles apparently searching for something under the table. Aria's pulse quickened. This was the exact time frame Charles claimed the ring disappeared. "Could there be a clue hidden in that glitch?" Charles scoffed. "So there's a glitch. Big deal that doesn't prove anything." Richard's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "No, it doesn't. But it raises questions." He turned to James. "Is there any other camera angle that covers that area even partially?" James shifted uncomfortably. "We have one more camera near the kitchen door that might catch the far side of that table, but it's basically a corner shot. I rarely check it because it's usually for monitoring staff entering the kitchen." "Let's take a look," suggested Officer Reyes. They switched feeds, scanning for the same timed window. The angle was more diagonal, showing a slice of the dining room that included the edge of Charles and Victoria's table. It was distant and slightly obstructed, but it offered a different perspective. Aria watched anxiously, her eyes darting to every detail in the frame. Suddenly Richard pointed at the screen. "Pause there." They froze the video. The resolution was poor, but Charles was visible from behind, and Aria was to his left, collecting plates. At that moment, Charles's right hand moved under the table, but his left hand, which wore the ring, was resting on his thigh. Then the glitch from the other camera feed occurred in real time. Advance slowly said, "Richard." The frames ticked forward. Charles's left hand twitched. It looked like he was fiddling with his ring, or possibly removing it. Then his shoulder hunched as if he bent forward. A second later he straightened and gave Aria a glare. "Is he taking the ring off?" James asked in a hushed tone. Officer Reyes narrowed her eyes. "It does look like that, but the resolution is too poor to be certain." Richard Branson exhaled slowly, as though a puzzle piece had clicked into place in his mind. If Charles removed the ring himself, that might explain the glitch on the other camera. Someone could have tampered with it to hide that moment. Though I can't be sure, this is speculation. Aria's heartbeat thundered. Why would Charles remove his ring to set her up? Charles, who had been standing behind them, abruptly lunged forward. This is ridiculous. The footage is inconclusive. She could have taken it off me, or maybe she convinced someone else to do it. Officer Reyes turned to Charles. Sir, it seems there's reason to believe that you might have removed your ring. Do you want to explain that? Charles's face flushed. No, I did no such thing. That's absurd. Victoria placed a hand on his shoulder. Charles, you did keep messing with the ring. Maybe you dropped it. He jerked away from her. I know what I'm doing. I never took the ring off. His gaze flicked accusingly to the group. This is a circus. I'll hire my own investigators. Officer Reyes held up a placating hand. I'm not saying you're guilty of anything, but this footage raises questions. We'll need to do more investigation. Right now, we don't have evidence to charge. Miss Sullivan, Aria's chest loosened a fraction. Officer Reyes turned to her. You can remain on the premises or go home, but we might need to contact you for further questioning. Aria's eyes dampened with relief. Thank you. Officer Charles glared, pointing a finger at Aria. Don't leave town. The tension was so thick, it almost hummed in the air. Richard Branson exhaled, turning to Aria with a sympathetic look. It appears we're at an impasse for now. James cleared his throat. In the meantime, Mr. Hamilton the bistro has done its due diligence. We've searched everything, turned over all relevant footage. Perhaps we should let the authorities do their job. Officer Reyes nodded in agreement. We'll file a report, and if the ring is genuinely lost on the premises, we'll keep searching. But without any definitive proof that Miss Sullivan took it, I suggest we refrain from further harassment. Charles's hand curled into a fist. He turned on his heel and stormed out of the office, Victoria chasing after him, calling his name. A hush fell over the group left behind. Aria James, Officer Reyes, and Richard Aria let out a shaky breath. Thank you, she said to no one in particular, relief flooding her eyes. Richard offered her a compassionate nod. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I've seen these kinds of scenarios before, where someone with power makes hasty accusations. She wanted to hug him out of sheer gratitude, but she managed a calm nod. Just having a fair chance to show the footage helps Officer Reyes gathered her things. We'll be in touch. Please let us know if the ring resurfaces. With that, the officer left the office. James excused himself to handle the restaurant's closing tasks, leaving Aria alone, momentarily with Richard Branson. He glanced at her with a mixture of empathy and admiration. You're a strong person. Not everyone keeps their composure under such accusations. Aria gulped. I didn't feel composed. I was terrified. Richard gave a gentle laugh. You hid it well. Listen, James mentioned to me a while back that he had a star waitress he trusted implicitly. After tonight, I see why. He glanced at his watch, now about that meal. Aria realized in all the chaos no one had even taken his order. A blush crept up her face. Of course, Mr. Branson. I'm so sorry. Let me make sure you're served properly. He waved off her apology. Please call me Richard. And don't worry. You've had a night no one should have to endure. Aria nodded, feeling a strange sense of solace in his kindness, though the ordeal was far from over. The fact that a new perspective and potentially a powerful ally had arrived gave her a glimmer of hope. Maybe the truth would win out in the end. Westbridge Bistro was nearly empty as the final customers trickled out. Mia and another co-worker, Devon, stacked chairs while James tallied the day's receipts. Aria had finally gotten a chance to take Richard Branson's dinner order, a modest meal of grilled fish and vegetables. Despite the tension of the evening, he insisted on staying to finish his dinner quietly, occasionally glancing in Aria's direction with a reassuring smile. Out of earshot of the other staff, Mia cornered Arya near the sink. "How are you holding up?" Arya placed a stack of dishes on the counter. "I'm exhausted mentally and physically. But at least the police didn't find anything incriminating because there's nothing to find," Mia nodded, lowering her voice. "I overheard Charles in the hallway earlier, talking on his phone. He said something about keeping up appearances and making sure the ring is safe." Arya froze, her pulse quickening. "What do you think that means? I'm not sure. But it sounded like he already knew where the ring was." Mia's expression was grave. "Be careful, Arya. He might be setting you up." A cold shiver ran through Arya. If Charles had orchestrated this entire fiasco, perhaps to claim insurance or to manipulate a scenario, she could be collateral damage. "I won't let him ruin my life," she said firmly. Though her heart hammered in her chest, Mia squeezed Arya's hand. "I believe you." While they finished cleaning up, Arya realized she still had to gather her belongings from the staff locker. The memory of the officers searching her items lingered. She dreaded stepping into that small, claustrophobic space again. When she entered the locker room, she found it eerily quiet. The only sound was the steady drip of a leaky faucet in the adjacent restroom. She opened her locker, rummaging for her coat and purse. Her reflection in the small mirror revealed tear-streaked cheeks, the residue of stress and humiliation. She took a moment to steady herself. Suddenly, a gentle knock on the doorframe startled her. She spun around to see Richard Branson standing there. "Apologies," he said softly, stepping inside only when she nodded permission. "I didn't mean to intrude." She tried to smooth her hair, feeling self-conscious. "It's okay, I was just collecting myself." He nodded sympathetically. "I noticed you looked shaken. I wanted to let you know I'm heading out. Your manager said you're clocking off soon. Do you have a safe way home?" Arya nodded. "I usually take the bus. It's a few blocks away." Richard frowned. "After what happened tonight, you shouldn't have to wait at a dark bus stop alone. Allow me to arrange a car for you." She hesitated. "I appreciate it, but I don't want to trouble you." He shook his head. "It's no trouble, you've dealt with enough tonight." He paused, seeming to weigh his words. "If there's anything else I can do, like help consult on the footage or speak to a lawyer, I'm willing to help. People like Charles Hamilton can be relentless when they feel their pride is threatened." Arya felt a surge of gratitude. Here was a globally recognized entrepreneur going out of his way to ensure her well-being. She wasn't used to such kindness from a stranger. "Thank you. I just want the truth to come out." He offered a gentle smile. It usually does eventually, but sometimes it needs a push. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a small card. "This is my personal assistant's contact information. If you need anything, references a bit of legal counsel, or just someone to help navigate the media storm if it comes to that, please call." She accepted the card, swallowing a lump of emotion. "I don't know how to thank you." He shook his head, tucking his hands into his pockets. "No need. I believe in standing up for people who are treated unfairly. It's how I was raised." Arya mustered a small, genuine smile. For a moment, the bleakness of the evening lifted. "Thank you, Richard." With that, he stepped aside to let her gather the rest of her things. True to his promise, he arranged a ride for her. A sleek town car pulled up to the curb outside the bistro, and she slipped into the back seat, hugging her purse. As the car navigated the quiet streets, Arya stared out at the city lights, her mind a swirl of relief, confusion, and an odd sort of hope. Despite the looming threat of Charles Hamilton's accusations, a part of her believed she could weather this storm. She had allies, Mia, her co-workers, Officer Reyes's fair-minded approach, and astonishingly, the famed Richard Branson on her side. She thought of Liam, asleep at home with the babysitter, blissfully unaware of the tempest swirling around his mother's life. Arya vowed as the car turned onto her street that she would fight for her name, her future, and her son's security. Because sometimes, even when the world tilts against you, a single spark of kindness can illuminate the path forward. The following day dawned grey and misty, as if the heavens themselves were uncertain about revealing the son. Arya woke early, despite a restless night spent tossing and turning. She readied Liam for preschool, giving him extra hugs. His chirpy excitement about finger-painting projects offered a brief respite from her swirling thoughts. Once Liam was dropped off, Arya made her way to the bistro James had called earlier, saying there was a meeting before opening. She braced herself for whatever news awaited. Maybe Charles Hamilton had escalated matters, or perhaps the police had new information. When she arrived, she found James, Mia, and Devon already seated at a table. James wore a grave expression, his hands folded on the wooden surface. "Arya, thanks for coming in." She slid into a chair. "Is there any news?" James hesitated. Mr. Hamilton is apparently threatening legal action against the restaurant, claiming negligence and harboring a thief. He pressed his lips together. He's also demanding we fire you. Arya's heart thudded. On what grounds? James exhaled. He claims we haven't cooperated fully, which is nonsense. We've cooperated with the police, turned over footage, everything. But he's threatening to go public with accusations. A social media campaign could destroy our business. Mia slammed her palm on the table. This is unbelievable. You can't cave to him. James, Arya's innocent. Devon chimed in, nodding fervently. Exactly. Everyone knows she wouldn't steal a teaspoon, let alone a fancy ring. James held up a hand to calm them. I have no intention of firing Arya. At least not unless there's actual proof of wrongdoing. But I have to consider the bistro's reputation. Arya's throat tightened. I get it. If I'm hurting the restaurant, I don't want that. But it's not fair. James sighed. No, it's not. But maybe there's a middle ground. Could you take a few days off while we sort this out? Let the police do their work. See if anything turns up. Then hopefully we can bring you back without controversy. Her chest felt heavy. She needed the income. Taking unpaid leave was a significant blow. But what choice did she have? I understand, she whispered, fighting back tears. Mia's eyes flashed with anger. This is exactly what Charles wants, punishment for an imaginary crime. It's not right. Devon nodded in solidarity. James rubbed his temples. I'm trying to protect all of us here. The last thing we need is a meltdown on Yelp or local news. Let's just see how it plays out. Arya forced herself to remain calm. Okay, I'll step back for a bit. But I promise. James, I'm not giving up. I'll find a way to prove my innocence. He offered a sorrowful half-smile. I know you're innocent, Arya. We just need tangible proof. She rose from the table, her cheeks burning with a mixture of shame and fury. Mia reached for her arm, but Arya gently pulled away. I'll see you all soon. I hope. The brisk morning air outside did nothing to soothe her turbulent thoughts. She walked aimlessly for a while, passing by shops and cafes that were just opening. A part of her wanted to run back into the bistro, scream at the unfairness of it all. Another part recognized the precarious position James was in, forced to juggle business interests with moral obligations. Eventually, Arya ended up at a small park near the edge of downtown Ducks, waddled near a pond, and a lone jogger paced around a walking path. She sank onto a bench phone, in hand, uncertain who to call or what to do. Her thoughts drifted to the card Richard Branson had given her. She fished it out of her purse, running a fingertip over the embossed letters. Could she really ask a billionaire for help? Would that not be too presumptuous? And yet he had offered stealing herself. She dialed the number, her heart thudding with every ring. After 2 rings, a crisp, polite voice answered. "Hello? You've reached the office of Richard Branson. How may I help you?" Arya inhaled deeply. "Hi, this is Arya Sullivan. Mr. Branson gave me this contact number yesterday. He said I could reach out if I needed assistance." There was a slight pause. Then the voice softened. "Yes, Ms. Sullivan. We've been expecting your call. Please hold while I connect you." Expecting my call? Arya wondered. Her pulse raced. A soft click, then Richard's voice came on. "Arya, good morning. Everything okay?" She fought to keep her voice from trembling. "Not really. The bistro is under pressure from Charles Hamilton. I'm being forced to take a leave." He listened quietly, occasionally murmuring in disapproval. When she finished, he sighed. "I'm sorry it's come to this. I'm still in Westbridge for a couple more days tying up business. Why don't we meet this afternoon? We can discuss our options in a more private setting." She swallowed. "Are you sure you have the time?" A gentle laugh. "I always make time for situations where I can help. Let's meet at the Central Library's rooftop cafe at 1 o'clock. It's public, but quiet enough for conversation." Arya agreed, feeling a strange mix of hope and anxiety. As she hung up, she glanced at the park pond. The morning sun had finally started to peek through the clouds, illuminating the water in shimmering gold. She allowed herself a small, wry smile. Perhaps a new dawn was breaking for her as well. Arya arrived at the Central Library rooftop cafe a few minutes before 1 o'clock. The building was an architectural marvel, glass walls, modern lines, and a lush rooftop garden where patrons could enjoy a cappuccino while overlooking the city skyline. Nervous energy pulsed through her as she scanned the scattered tables. Richard Branson waved from a corner, wearing a casual blazer and sipping tea. He stood when she approached, offering a warm handshake. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, slipping into a seat across from him. He smiled kindly. "It's my pleasure, Arya. I trust you're holding up trying to," she admitted. A barista came by and she ordered a chamomile tea. Once they were alone, she explained the morning's developments, her forced leave, Charles Hamilton's threats, and her desperation to clear her name. Richard nodded, absorbing every detail. "It sounds like Charles Hamilton is using intimidation tactics." "This might not be just about a ring." She raised an eyebrow. "You think so? What else could it be?" He considered the question. Sometimes a person like Charles uses incidents like this to manipulate business deals or to claim insurance. If that ring truly is as valuable as he claims, there could be a significant payout for a theft. Or he might be using this drama to distract from something else going on in his life, Arya sighed. "Regardless, he's dragging me through the mud. Is there a legal route I can take?" Richard placed his teacup down. "Yes, you could press for defamation if he continues, but that's expensive and time-consuming. First, we need irrefutable proof you didn't steal the ring. The security footage is suggestive, but not conclusive." She nodded, fiddling with the edge of her napkin. "I don't know what else to do." He gave her a thoughtful look. "I have a contact who's an expert in digital forensics. Someone who can potentially recover lost or corrupted frames from security footage. If you're willing, I could hire them to examine the bistro's raw video files." Her heart leapt with hope. That would be amazing, but wouldn't that cost a fortune? He shrugged casually. Don't worry about the expense. Consider it an investment in justice. Tears of relief threatened to spill from Arya's eyes. She hadn't expected such generosity. I can't thank you enough. He waved it off. There's no guarantee we'll find something conclusive, but it's worth a try. He paused. Also, if you'd like, I can make a few calls to the local media. Sometimes shining a light on someone's bullying tactics makes them back off. Arya's eyes widened. Publicly, I'm not sure I want more attention. He smiled, understanding. I get it. Let's hold off on that for now. Focus on the forensic analysis of the footage first. She nodded. Yes, that sounds like a plan. They spent the next half hour discussing logistics. Richard would contact James to obtain a copy of the raw security files. His forensics expert would analyze them. In the meantime, Arya should document every interaction with Charles or anyone who threatened her job status. By the time they parted, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Richard walked her to the elevator, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. No one should feel powerless. If we band together and persist, we'll uncover the truth. Arya stepped into the elevator, her voice soft with gratitude. Thank you, Richard. He nodded, the elevator doors sliding shut. The reflection of her face in the polished interior was still drawn with worry. But for the first time since Charles's accusation, a spark of hope gleamed in her eyes. A week passed, during which Arya stayed home with Liam, anxiously awaiting any news from Richard Branson's forensic contact. Mia kept her updated on happenings at the bistro. Business remained steady, but the staff morale was low, overshadowed by the theft controversy. Then, one afternoon, Arya's phone buzzed. She answered quickly, hearing an unfamiliar voice. Deep, meticulous. Miss Sullivan, I'm Nolan Pierce, digital forensics specialist, calling on behalf of Mr. Branson. I've been examining the bistro footage. Are you available to discuss what I've found? Her heart raced. Yes. What did you discover? A short pause. It seems there's evidence that the main camera feed was deliberately tampered with, precisely during the moment Mr. Hamilton claims the theft occurred. I managed to recover partial frames from the corrupted data. You should see for yourself. They arranged to meet at Richard's hotel suite in the city's upscale district. Arya found herself climbing gilded steps, heart pounding at the possibility of vindication. Inside the suite's private lounge, Nolan Pierce, a sharp-eyed man in his 40s, sat at a laptop. Richard stood nearby, arms folded. He greeted Arya with a reassuring nod. Nolan launched into a technical explanation of how the camera's data had been digitally corrupted during certain frames. He clicked on a file revealing a recovered snippet of video. Though still grainy, it clearly showed Charles Hamilton removing his ring under the table, then slipping it into what appeared to be his jacket pocket before abruptly looking around as if he'd lost it. The glitch replaced a crucial 2-second interval, but enough partial frames survived to piece together the truth. Arya's eyes flooded with tears of relief. She stared at the computer screen, watching the incriminating footage again and again. He set me up, she whispered, half in awe, half in anger. Richard looked grim. It seems so. He either wanted to accuse you or claim insurance, or both. But this is definitive proof that you never touched that ring. Nolan leaned back, folding his arms. There's also metadata indicating an external device accessed the system remotely, possibly to insert the corruption code. Someone with hacking skills was hired, or Charles did it himself. If he's tech-savvy enough, Arya felt a twinge of fury. The lengths Charles had gone to ruin her life were staggering. So what do we do now? Richard crossed his arms. We give this to the police. And if Charles Hamilton tries to continue his charade, we confront him with the evidence. Aria's phone vibrated again. It was James. She picked up excitement buzzing in her veins. "James, you won't believe." His voice was urgent. "Aria, get down to the bistro. Charles Hamilton is here, threatening to shut us down if we don't turn you over to the authorities. He's causing a scene." She exchanged a glance with Richard and Nolan. "I'll be right there." In a flurry, they gathered the laptop and hurried to Westbridge Bistro. When they arrived, Charles was in the middle of the dining room, brandishing a phone, shouting at James. Victoria stood off to the side, wringing her hands in distress. "You won't get away with this." Charles fumed. "I'll sue this entire establishment for harboring a criminal patrons." Sat frozen in their seats, half-eaten meals forgotten. James was pale, torn between controlling the outburst and not provoking Charles further. Aria stormed in, followed by Richard and Nolan. Her voice rang out clear and strong. "That's enough, Mr. Hamilton." He spun around, an ugly sneer on his face. "You dare show up here? Thief." "Funny, you call me that," Aria retorted, adrenaline fueling her courage. She turned to Nolan. "Show everyone what you found." Nolan connected his laptop to the bistro's large TV near the bar. A hush fell over the restaurant as the recovered video played. Frame by frame, it revealed Charles slipping the ring off his finger, the timeline matching the exact moment he'd accused Aria. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Victoria clapped a hand over her mouth, eyes wide with horror. James stared, slack-jawed. Charles's face drained of color, then turned a splotchy red. "This is doctored," he sputtered. "Lies." Nolan calmly shook his head. "I'm a certified forensic specialist. I can testify in court that these frames are authentic. The only doctored part is the glitch you inserted to hide your action." Charles's eyes darted around, looking for an escape. "You can't prove? Maybe I just was adjusting it?" Or Aria's voice carried a calm fury. "You orchestrated this entire thing. You wanted to pin a theft on me, to either claim insurance or punish the restaurant. Well, it's over." She thrust a hand out, pointing at the door. "You need to leave now." Charles's jaw worked furiously. Victoria stepped forward, tears brimming in her eyes. "Charles, how could you?" He snatched his phone, muttering expletives. "You'll regret this." But his threats rang hollow in the face of the damning evidence. The entire dining room was witness to his deceit. Officer Reyes, who had been called by James, earlier entered at that moment with her partner. It took only minutes for them to view the new evidence resulting in Charles Hamilton's immediate arrest on suspicion of filing a false police report and possible attempted fraud. As he was led away in handcuffs, his face glowered with impotent rage. Aria stood trembling but triumphant in the center of the dining room. Applause broke out among the patrons and staff. Mia rushed forward to hug her, tears of relief streaking her cheeks. James shook Aria's hand, apologizing profusely for ever doubting her. Victoria approached last, whispering a tearful apology, before leaving quietly, her world shattered by Charles's betrayal. Richard Branson placed a steadying hand on Aria's shoulder. "You did it. You proved your innocence." She exhaled, eyes shining. "I couldn't have done it without your help." He smiled. Justice is a team effort. Epilogue: A New Dawn. In the weeks that followed, Aria returned to the bistro with her head held high. Word spread about her exoneration, and ironically, the restaurant gained positive publicity for exposing a high-profile scheme. Business boomed, and James offered Aria a promotion to head server complete with better pay and benefits. She accepted, grateful yet modest, focusing on securing a bright future for herself and Liam. As for Charles Hamilton, legal proceedings began against him. The fiasco uncovered deeper financial troubles he'd intended to use, the ring's staged theft for insurance fraud. Public opinion soured on him, and many of his once loyal business associates distanced themselves. Richard Branson completed his local investments, including a stake in Westbridge Bistro's expansion. He remained in touch with Aria, occasionally checking in to ensure she was thriving. A genuine friendship blossomed, one based on mutual respect and gratitude. One late afternoon after her shift, Aria sat at a table in the now lively bistro, sipping a cup of tea. Liam doodled happily beside her on a colouring sheet. She gazed around the bustling dining room, feeling a surge of contentment. Yes, the ordeal had been harrowing, but she had emerged stronger, with faith in the power of truth and kindness. The future glowed with possibility, and in a quiet moment of reflection, Aria closed her eyes, thanking all those who had believed in her when it mattered most. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey of accusation, betrayal, and ultimate vindication. Aria's story reminds us that truth will find its way to the surface, no matter how carefully someone tries to bury it. With the support of loyal friends, the unwavering resolve of a fair-minded law enforcement officer, and the unexpected kindness of a philanthropic millionaire, justice was finally served. If this roller coaster tale has kept you on the edge of your seat, we have a small favor to ask. Please like this video and share it with friends who love a great real-life drama with a triumphant ending. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, where we'll continue to bring you powerful stories of hope, courage, and resilience. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the greatest truth is revealed when we dare to shine a light in the darkness.